Part 27. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 262. In May, on the night of the full moon in the Taurus month, Rudolph and Yvonne came out of the cemetery. Yvonne had just gone through her transformation night this month and was a little weak. "I'll carry you on my back." Rudolph carried Yvonne on his back and walked towards the orphanage. It was clearly May, but the night was a little cold. Not long after entering the Dordo district, Rudolph suddenly froze in place. Yvonne looked around quickly, but she didn't see anything. "What's wrong?" Rudolph froze for a moment and said, "I seem to hear someone calling me." The full moon whispers tonight were so chaotic that Rudolph felt that the Dordo district was full of heretics. Rudolph. God's expectations, God's gaze. Ritual. Blood servant. Money, we need money. In the noisy full moon whispers, Rudolph heard his name. Someone was calling him, and someone was constantly whispering his name in his heart. This call actually overwhelmed other voices. The other voices were also a little strange. There seemed to be a lot of evil gods around, and they were doing something related to the evil gods. "I'll take you back first, and have a good rest tonight." After sending Yvonne back, Rudolph left the orphanage. The full moon hung in the sky, giving the Dordo district a layer of silver paint. The whispers tonight were particularly agitated, causing Rudolph's head to ache slightly. He kept changing directions and walked in the direction where the whispers were the strongest. He soon found a direction, and the further he walked in this direction, the clearer the voice calling him became. Soon, Rudolph came to an ordinary wall, where there was an extra sentence of mumbling. "Rudolph, map. Map? What map?" Rudolph hadn't come into contact with any maps recently, and he didn't know why the person who called him mentioned the map. Could it be the map of Fabro City? Or the map of Dordo district? An owl flew into the sky and circled over Dordo district. Rudolph memorized the map of Dordo district in his mind and marked a point here. Rudolph looked around for abnormalities, and an iron nail sunk into the ground caught his attention. Iron nails, the painful priests like iron nails the most. In addition to the mumbling of Rudolph, there were also many mumblings of evil priests around, and they were all chanting rituals one by one, but they didn't know what rituals they were. Rudolph suddenly looked up, and from the owl's perspective, someone was approaching here. Not only that, the owl suddenly fell from the sky. Level 3 oak cane, this is the function of the druid magic weapon. Someone used this magic weapon to clear the sky of the Dordo district and drove away all the animals. Rudolph's breathing became cautious. As far as he knew, only the Ravno family had a level 3 oak cane. No, he suddenly thought that Speaker Quint also had such a magic weapon and had seized this magic weapon from the Blood clan. Hiding in a shadow, Rudolph waited for someone to come. Footsteps sounded in the distance, and at the same time, some people shouted, "The Judgment Bureau is hunting down the evil god priest. Everyone stay out." A witch hunter team, 4 witch hunters walked slowly on the street. They were not hunting down anyone, but simply asked the residents around them not to go out and not to disturb them. Not far behind the witch hunters, there were other people following, but they didn't look like witch hunters, but the evil god priests that the witch hunters said they were going to hunt down. Rudolph saw the lame man and the bald head, which were typical characteristics of the evil god priests. The Judgment Bureau and the evil god priest were indeed mixed together. The first wave of people came to the wall, and Rudolph heard the sound of iron nails drilling the ground. 2 people squatted on the ground, and I don't know what pattern they were drawing on the ground with iron nails. The witch hunters who shouted to hunt down the evil god priest not only did not take action, but also scattered to the surrounding streets, as if they were guarding against possible troublemakers. When did the Judgment Bureau and the evil god priest become so harmonious? Rudolph suddenly heard the buzzing sound of insects, and he looked down and saw insects flying around his feet. "There are people over there." A priest of the insect nest reminded others, and the witch hunters quickly ran towards Rudolph. Rudolph retreated quickly. He didn't understand the situation yet and didn't want to take action here. The iron bat wings spread, and Rudolph quickly disappeared in the distance of the street. Witch hunters, evil god priests, such a combination made Rudolph a little confused. What on earth are they going to do? Grenade after grenade was thrown at Rudolph, which made him a little angry. If that was all, he would have thought of fighting back, but when he saw the rocket launcher, he knew that the Inquisition was going to be serious tonight. They actually took out the rocket launcher, which was the strongest individual weapon of the alchemist. It was impossible to fight back, and Rudolph had to flee far away. The whispers calling his name kept lingering in his ears. The whispers just now helped him find the mark made by the evil god priest. He didn't know what the person who made the whispers wanted to do. Rudolph was very fast and went around to other directions. He met a group of people gathered together again. The composition was still the same, the evil god priests, and the witch hunters of the Inquisition. The people of the Inquisition were cleaning the periphery, and the evil god priests gathered under a wall, and it was unknown what they were doing. Marking the second point on the map, Rudolph walked to the place where the whispers were louder. "Rudolph, Rudolph, map, 2 circles of 7-pointed stars." New information appeared in the whisper again, 2 circles of 7-pointed stars. Rudolph began to search for the new gathering point of the priests. He soon found a few more places. Although he couldn't get close, he roughly knew where they gathered. 2 circles of 7-pointed stars. Rudolph recalled the map of the Dordo district in his mind and marked the points that appeared one by one. However, Rudolph only found 5 points, and these points were far away. Not to mention putting together 2 circles of 7-pointed stars, even the complete shape could not be seen. Just when Rudolph was a little anxious, he heard the sound of insects again. The priest of the insect nest is responsible for the vigilance of the surroundings, and it is easy for insects to approach. When Rudolph stepped on the insect to death, he looked up and saw someone approaching him again. This time, Rudolph was very close to their gathering point, and 2 priests were rushing towards him quickly. Rudolph took out the level 3 heartbeat earplugs and plugged them into his ears. One of the heretics heard a strange thumping sound in the silent night. "Did you hear it? Where is the thumping sound?" "No." The bald man who heard the abnormality slowed down and slowly approached the target. Next to him was the priest of the hive, who was communicating with his insects and guiding the direction. The bald white demon priest's steps became slower and slower and more cautious. The priest of the hive suddenly found that the white demon priest next to him had completely stopped. What happened? The next moment, the white demon priest covered his heart and fell forward, and his bald head hit the ground heavily. The white demon priest's heart rate suddenly dropped to half of the original rate, and he couldn't even breathe due to the severe heart pain. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 263. After a few dull sounds of falling to the ground, the alley returned to peace. 2 priests died on the street, and Rudolph quickly took away their relics, a level 3 white magic light bead and a level 2 insect nest. These 2 relics came very timely. Although there was no time to make witchcraft, the 2 relics lit up the last 2 stars of Pisces and completely lit up Pisces. On the star map, like an abstract oil painting, the bright stars of Pisces kept flashing, and Rudolph felt that his Pisces witchcraft became more powerful. He was confident that when he used Pisces witchcraft again, he could achieve better results. Especially the Pisces witchcraft entanglement, the toxin that Rudolph had just cast when he killed the 2 priests, was so clear in Rudolph's perception at this time, and he established a deeper connection with his toxin, and the bone-eroding poison would become easier and more efficient. After Pisces was lit up, a beam of light hung down from Pisces, and a light cocoon appeared under the beam of light. This is the star cocoon of the puppet forbidden technique. The light cocoon is empty. This is the second forbidden technique star cocoon prepared for Rudolph. 3 water signs, Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer, will give themselves a puppet forbidden technique after each sign is lit up, allowing them to control a puppet. I just don't know what forbidden technique will be given to them after lighting up other signs. Before others arrived, Rudolph fled quickly. This time his direction was more correct, and the mumbling in his mind was clearer. Rudolph, Rudolph, map, 2 circles of 7 pointed stars, Judgment Bureau, Blood Clan, Evil God. Rudolph has already met the Judgment Bureau and the Evil God priest. Now there are still Blood Clan in the Dordo district? What are they going to do? Rudolph didn't know what they were going to do, and he didn't have time to investigate. Rudolph thought that the best way was to find the apostle who had been calling Rudolph. That person must know him. Judging from the tone of the whisper, the person was still very weak and only had half a breath. Rudolph walked forward cautiously and finally came to a slaughterhouse. After walking around the slaughterhouse, he was sure that the whisper that called him was in the slaughterhouse. Rudolph closed his eyes and tried to hear the follow-up content of the whisper. At this time, in the basement of the slaughterhouse, except for the spine, most of Larry's bones were broken. The intact spine clearly transmitted the pain to his brain. The only motivation for Larry to survive was that he wanted to send out the intelligence Wayne had investigated. This full moon night may be his last night. From today on, there will be no more sacrifices sent in around, proving that the painful priest has completed the preparations. The painful priest didn't torture anything out, maybe they will end themselves tonight. Larry felt that he couldn't hold on any longer, and he would die in a few minutes. At this moment, Larry suddenly heard another voice in his mind. Who is calling me? Larry's pupils suddenly widened, and he suddenly saw hope. There was no one else in the prison around him, but Larry heard Rudolph's voice. He remembered Rudolph's voice, and this voice was so kind at this time. Rudolph, is that you? Rudolph, who was on the periphery, suddenly opened his eyes and lit up all the stars in Pisces. The ability of Pisces witch language entanglement has been qualitatively improved, and Rudolph can actually talk to the whispers. This is a good ability, and you can use whispers to do a lot of things in the future. It's me. Who are you? Why are you calling me? I'm Larry, I'm dying, I want to tell you a piece of information. Larry. The last time I saw Larry was when he and Wayne came to him and said that Senator Jem was plotting something with the evil god. What information? The priests of the evil god Pain have made some marks in the Dordo district. They want to hold a large-scale sacrifice to the evil god Pain. What is their purpose? The sacrifices are all ordinary people. This is a sacrifice for ordinary people. The evil god may divide the ordinary people in the Dordo district with the Blood Clan. Rudolph fell silent. Fabro City is close to the wilderness. The ordinary people here are not people at all. They are just human minds. All forces want to dig this human mine. The Dordo district is the last human mine and the last pure land. It may not be spared tonight. The chaotic footsteps sounded in the basement, and the evil gods came to the basement with torture instruments. Rudolph, I'm going to die. Rudolph found a basement with high side windows in the slaughterhouse. It must be where Larry is imprisoned. I'll go save you now. Larry's mumbling became much quieter. He was discouraged after completing the task, and he was tortured again. For Rudolph, the second-ranked whisper became the strongest whisper. Great pain. Please save the ants suffering here. The ability of the full moon whisper became much stronger, allowing Rudolph to talk to the strongest whisper. The person who made the whisper was obviously a priest of pain. Rudolph just observed silently, saying nothing, doing nothing, observing what he was going to do. But the next moment, another voice sounded in the priest's mind, Punna, I see your piety, Start your sacrifice. Punna, it was the chief priest Punna who summoned the evil god of pain. At this moment, there were three souls in Punna's mind. Punna who knew nothing, the evil god of pain, and Rudolph. Pain couldn't find Rudolph, but that didn't mean that the evil god Pain couldn't find him either. The evil god Pain immediately realized that there was something in Pan's mind, and someone was eavesdropping on Pan's actions with some sophisticated witchcraft. Ants, stupid ants. The evil god Pain separated a wisp of consciousness, turned it into a powerful force, and suddenly hit the wisp of impurity in Pan's mind, that is, Rudolph. Rudolph stood there, his eyes could no longer see the things in front of him, his vision seemed to pass through layers of fog and saw an endless mud. In the center of the mud, there was a naked man. The man's body was covered with spots of mud, and he was also pierced with dozens of large and small iron nails. As he breathed, the iron nails rubbed against his flesh and bones, and his flesh rose and fell with the rusty iron nails, and waves of blood oozed from the place where the two were connected. These pains seemed to be nothing to this man. His brows were furrowed, but the corners of his mouth were slightly relieved. The man slowly raised his head. Rudolph was thousands of kilometers away from him, but he could look Rudolph in the eye. Rudolph hurriedly closed his eyes, but it was too late. The moment he saw the man, he was already locked. The evil god of pain, the one sitting in the mud, is the evil god of pain. How dare you look directly at me, poor wizard? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 264. A level 3 wizard actually looked directly at the evil god, who was a terrifying existence that had gained eternal life. The evil god had almost existed since the birth of the apostles. The evil god hid in an unknown corner, silently looking for a way to become a true god. Although there was no injury, every part of Rudolph's skin, every muscle and every bone was shrinking and twitching, transmitting intense pain to Rudolph's nerves. The pain brought about a rise in body temperature. The breath that Rudolph exhaled from his mouth was so hot that it penetrated into Rudolph's nostrils, scalding his nostrils to the point of pain. In just a short time, Rudolph's nostrils were dry and burst, and the capillaries in his nostrils broke and bleeding from his nose. This was just the painful appetizer, and it was just the beginning of endless pain. The evil god was in pain and just glanced at Rudolph from thousands of kilometers away. After Rudolph twitched, dense cracks appeared on his body, which were more than 10 centimeters long. These cracks went all the way to the bones, cutting through his skin, fat, and muscles. Along with the cracks came intense pain, pain from the skin to the depths of the bone marrow. His muscles broke, his legs lost strength, and Rudolph fell to the ground. An even more terrifying method appeared. From those cracks in his flesh and blood, some thorn balls made of iron nails suddenly grew out. Rudolph couldn't understand why iron nails grew out of his flesh and blood. The iron nails stabbed iron thorns in different directions, like sea urchins, and eventually turned into iron thorns, which were stuck in Rudolph's flesh and blood. The iron thorns pierced the skin outward, causing clusters of needles on Rudolph's skin, and pierced the flesh and blood inward, scraping the bones. Rudolph could even feel the vibration caused by the iron thorns scraping against the bones when they grew. "Call me, Larry, call me." At this moment, Rudolph wanted to escape from the evil god's gaze. Panner's mumbling is still the strongest mumbling that Rudolph can hear. If this mumbling does not subside, Rudolph will die. Larry's spine has been broken, and the priest in front of him is about to smash his head. "Rudolph, Rudolph, what's wrong with you?" Larry's hope, which had just been ignited, was shattered at this moment. Judging from the sound, Rudolph's condition seems to be worse than his. "Rudolph! Rudolph! On Rudolph's star map, the moon still emits a dim light. One mumbling after another poured into Rudolph's mind from the moon on the star map. Rudolph forced himself to forget the pain and focus on listening to Larry's call. Among the many mumblings, he only chose Larry's mumbling. Finally, he cut off his connection with Panner and the painful connection with the evil god. Rudolph, lying on the ground dying, couldn't even raise his hand. There were also caltrops all over his back. His weight pressed the caltrops in the flesh and blood on his back, causing him to suffocate. Breathing caused the chest to rise and fall, which would amplify the pain countless times. The caltrops on his back seemed to have pierced his chest, and the needles had already pierced his liver and lungs. There were countless caltrops in his arms, making him unable to do anything. Fortunately, he still had the Scorpio puppet, and he used his last bit of strength to release Vanya, who hurriedly began to treat Rudolph's wounds. This was torture. Vanya used a plague doctor's syringe to inject painkillers, which could only serve as psychological comfort. After that, he used a scalpel to pick open the cracks in the flesh and blood, and picked out the caltrops that were stabbed in the flesh and blood one by one. The iron thorns hung on Rudolph's muscles, and each time they were picked, they would leave a bigger wound deep in the flesh and blood. "Rudolph, I'm going to die." The painful priest had to deal with the obstructing debris before the sacrifice. Larry obviously shouldn't continue to appear in the dungeon. Some painful priests had entered the dungeon one after another, taking away the poor sacrifices one by one to the previously marked locations. The painful priest's hammer hit Larry's head, making a hole in Larry's head. "Rudolph, the hammer broke my skull." Rudolph could do nothing. He could only communicate with Larry through mumbling. "Larry, I'm sorry I can't help you. If you feel desperate, pray to Pisces, you will become a puppet and lose your soul. I can't save you, but I can avenge you." Originally, Rudolph was going to save Larry, but Rudolph's body temperature was dropping rapidly, and the caltrops stretched his flesh and blood, making all the wounds present different shapes. Blood was flowing out of Rudolph's body quickly, and in a short time, a large pool of blood appeared under Rudolph. Regarding Larry, the only thing Rudolph could do was to use the full moon whisper to send the forbidden star power of the Pisces puppet to Larry. The hammer was stuck in Larry's skull, and the priest of pain shook it left and right before pulling the hammer out. Blood flowed down Larry's head, covering half of his face, but he felt that there seemed to be something more in his mind. He raised his head and looked at the high side window of the basement. There was starlight falling there, allowing him to see a little bit of the starry sky. Things from many places in Larry's mind guided him to the starlight. "If you feel desperate, pray to Pisces." Larry's blood gushed out and splashed on the priest in front of him, forming ugly red spots. Larry will definitely die with the next hammer. As for becoming a puppet, this word doesn't sound like a good word. Larry's intuition told him that his life is over. One way to die is to die silently in this basement after the next hammering. Another way to die is to pray to Pisces according to Rudolph's arrangement. The painful priests all have a habit, that is, they like to watch others in endless pain, which can satisfy their perverted habits. Killing the enemy directly will not enjoy this kind of stimulation. The painful priest who was executing the execution in front of him was not in a hurry to kill Larry quickly, but with a satisfied and intoxicated expression, he leaned down and looked carefully at the hole in Larry's skull. The surrounding sacrifices were taken away by the painful priest. Now there were only 2 of them in the prison, and the painful priest had plenty of time to enjoy the pain of others. The light column composed of starlight shone on Larry's wound, making every reaction of Larry so clear. The painful priest could even see the twitching of the flesh around the wound, just like the meat just cut from the cow would still jump. The struggle before and even after death always makes people sigh at the power of life. Larry forced his mouth to open and close continuously. This was the only response he could give. As long as he still responded, the evil god priest would be more excited and could delay his action time. Larry's eyes were also moving, searching for his last hope. The construction technology of this era did not have mechanical ventilation, so all basements had very high side windows to ventilate the basements. Under the high side windows, the starlight was like a beam of light, giving this dirty basement some light. Larry had received star power, but it was the star power of the planet. Praying to Pisces, Larry felt that to realize this prayer, he first needed to receive star power, the kind of star power used by wizards. The starlight illuminated Larry's terrible wounds and brought Larry weak star power. Puppet, it's better than dying here. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 265. In theory, Larry couldn't feel the star power of the constellation, which was the exclusive apostle power of the wizard. But when Larry tried to pray to Pisces, he heard Rudolph's cry in his mind, entanglement. The constellation pattern of Pisces is two fish with their tails connected. No matter which direction the two fish want to swim, their tails will be tightly connected. Unless each of them cuts off its tail, they will never be able to get rid of each other. Pisces wizards are the most difficult to defend against among wizards. They can always attack the enemy in the most bizarre way across mountains and walls, and the enemy will never know which direction the attack came from until death. There were dots of light in Larry's eyes. Looking closely, there were 15 slightly flickering stars, and the line of stars was the line of Pisces. Rudolph clearly sensed Larry's position, and the Pisces star power appeared in Rudolph's body. At the same time, under the effect of entanglement, a trace of Pisces star power also appeared in Larry's body. The starlight beam from the high side window fell on Larry's body. The weak Pisces star power in Larry's body became the trigger, and the starlight brought down a huge star power. The planetary star power of the word spirit can predict good and bad luck and the unknown through the location of the planet and the time of the planet's retrograde. However, the constellation star power of the wizard can reflect the characteristics of the constellation and embody the characteristics of the constellation as a certain ability of the wizard. These star powers were running around in Larry's body, and Larry suddenly felt that he could control these star powers and use them. These star powers gave Larry strength. The painful priest was holding a hammer and admiring Larry's last miserable state before his death. He suddenly saw that the blood in the hole on the head of the prisoner in front of him was gushing like a small spring. He was even more excited. Why did the blood flow rate in the prisoner's body become faster? Is this a last gasp? What the painful priest could not see was that two translucent hazy strange fish swam out from the starlight beam from the high side window. The tails of the strange fish were connected together, and the fat fish body kept twisting. The two strange fish kept lowering their altitude and swam towards Larry. One of the fish drilled into Larry's head and kept twisting inside Larry's head, as if looking for something. It was this strange fish that brought Larry's dying body back to life, and Larry's blood was squeezed out by the strange fish. At a certain moment, Larry's eyes froze, and the strange fish that drilled into his brain bit something in him. The other strange fish began to twist its body and pulled the strange fish out of Larry's brain. A translucent, miniature version of Larry appeared in the mouth of the strange fish. This was Larry's soul, which was pulled by the two strange fish and entered the starlight beam. Suddenly, both the strange fish and the soul exploded and scattered into stars. At the same time, in the star map in Rudolph's mind, the stars began to gather, and the two strange fish surrounded a translucent figure and appeared in the star field of Pisces. Two strange fish surrounded the figure and descended along the slender beam of light hanging from the Pisces. At the end of the beam was a suspended light cocoon, and Larry's soul was pushed into the light cocoon by the two strange fish. So far, Larry became Rudolph's second puppet, the Pisces puppet. Larry in the prison suddenly looked up and stared at the painful priest in front of him. The painful priest was stunned. He was very confused. This was not in line with medical common sense. He had just confirmed that the prisoner's cervical vertebra had been broken. How did the prisoner raise his head? Larry also found it difficult to explain this feeling. His current body seemed to be dead, just a puppet controlled by the star power. Larry looked carefully at the dense blood drops on the face of the painful priest, one drop at a time. Those blood drops were all his blood, all the blood drops splashed when the painful priest hit Larry with a hammer. Seeing Larry's sight, the painful priest suddenly felt a little hot on his face. He raised his hand and touched his face, only to feel blood on his hand. Seeing the curl of hot air rising from his fingers, the blood seemed to be steaming, and the painful priest knew that this was not an illusion, and the burning sensation was real. The curse of Hades. Larry could not only raise his head, but also cast a spell. Larry had seen Kevin use this spell, a deadly secret spell of the cursed word spirit, which cursed the enemy to death directly. Larry's blood became the evidence of the curse, and the painful priest should regret that he should not have so much blood on him. It turned out that becoming a cursed word spirit was such a pleasant thing. Why should I live according to the requirements of the alchemist and just be a divination word spirit? The painful priest was now covered with Larry's blood, which was evaporated by unknown energy, leaving only dried blood spots. With his own blood as the evidence of the curse, the power of the curse penetrated deep into the body of the painful priest. The painful priest covered his heart and slowly hunched over. He wanted to speak, but he couldn't say a word. His heart seemed to be held by a pair of big hands, causing his entire chest to shrink and twitch. The curse was not fast, and it did not kill him instantly. A minute later, the priest of pain died of heart deformation. The priest of pain knelt in front of Larry, hunched over, and touched the ground with his head, as if he was confessing to Larry. Larry tried to raise his hand, but his muscles did not work. It was the star power that was driving his body, and his movements were a little stiff, like a clumsy puppet. Strictly speaking, he was no longer a person. The tragic injury would not kill him, and his actions could also be driven by the power of the apostles. He had two kinds of apostle power in his body, the planetary star power of the word spirit, and the constellation star power of the wizard. Larry vaguely knew several kinds of witchcraft, and he could also use the witchcraft that Rudolph knew. More importantly, Larry not only survived, but also became a level 3 word spirit. Without the promotion ceremony, his life was washed by the level 3 star power, allowing him to directly become a level 3 word spirit. Larry also gained two new abilities of the level 3 word spirit. A new technique on the divination side, fog divination. Everyone will encounter confusion, break the fog, and find the only chance to break the fog for yourself. A new technique on the curse side, memory stealing, can steal the key memory of the target. Larry stretched out his hand and pressed it on the head of the painful priest. What he wanted to know most now was what the sacrificial ritual of the evil god priest was. Use a large-scale sacrificial ritual to communicate with the evil god Pain, summon the evil god Pain, and let the eyes of God focus on this area. All people in the Dordo district will self-mutilate under the gaze of the evil god, and the evil god Pain will select the servants who meet his requirements. Those who are not selected will bleed in the self-mutilation, and the blood clan will collect this blood and make those who do not meet the requirements of the evil god Pain into blood servant minors. This is the plan of the evil god Pain and the blood clan to divide the Dordo district. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 266. At the same time, Larry also learned about the slaughterhouse's defense arrangements. He stood up from the ground, and the Sagittarius witch language flying function was applied to himself, allowing him to float in the air, avoid other guards, and float outward quickly. When Larry saw Rudolph, a pile of tribulus tens of centimeters high had appeared next to Rudolph. These were all iron thorns that Vanya had picked out from Rudolph's body. The caltrops in Rudolph's cheek were taken out, and the blood flowed into Rudolph's mouth, making Rudolph feel that the inside was full of fishy smell. Rudolph was riddled with wounds, with a pool of thick blood underneath him. He seemed to be even worse than Larry, who had just been tortured. After picking out all the caltrops, Rudolph felt much more relaxed. Vanya took out a small iron can from Rudolph's waist, which contained wolfsbane potion, which was specially used to treat trauma. Rudolph and Larry each took a sip of the wolfsbane potion, which caused their injuries to slowly begin to recover. Rudolph breathed in the cold air and endured the last pain before recovery, and said, "Larry, you have one night to maintain your consciousness. You will still be a fool tonight, but from tomorrow on, you will become my puppet." Larry nodded to show that he knew that this puppet technique was so powerful that it allowed him to have the star power of a wizard, and he could ignore injuries and use the power of an apostle to drive his body. More importantly, the promotion ceremony that did not require the spirit of speech made him a level 3 speech spirit is obviously not an ordinary witchcraft, and the price must be very high. While waiting for his injury to recover, Larry said, "Rudolph, I just used the memory stealing technique to learn about the plan of the Pain Priests. Pen, the main priest of Pain in Fabreau City, is arranging a seance ceremony. Iron nails were driven into many walls in the Dordo district as marks, and a sacrifice was nailed to each wall with iron nails. There are 2 circles inside and outside, 2 7-pointed star patterns, a total of 14 sacrifices. In the center of the slaughterhouse, there will be 7 sacrifices to please the evil god. In this seance ceremony, the evil god will watch here in Pain, and everyone in Dordo district will sacrifice some of their limbs to the evil god. The evil god of Pain will select suitable servants of the gods and let them embark on the path of servants of the god of Pain. Those who were not selected also had their fingers or ears cut off, and their blood would be given to the Rievno family for use in making blood servants. The Inquisition is also involved in this feast, and they will ensure that the sacrifices are performed correctly." Did the tribunal personally end it? Even losing face, Rudolph felt powerless after confirming this news. Faced with the evil priest, he was beaten to death. But what about witch hunters? Are they all killed too? With the help of wolfsbane potion and plague doctor syringe, Larry's injuries were almost recovered. He continued. It was the tribunal that took the initiative to find the evil god priest. There is a big gap between the number of blood servant miners and their plan, and the revenue of Thor Trading Company is also lower than expected. For the Night of Blood Mist to proceed smoothly, Speaker Quint promised exaggerated profit sharing to many big figures. Now he cannot give enough money to distribute to those people, so he is under great pressure. If someone is taking advantage of him, Speaker Quint will be abandoned and even liquidated by the big shots in Vichy County. Therefore, tonight, Speaker Quint wanted to use a sacrifice to completely solve the problem of lack of miners in the mining area. With the help of wolfsbane potion and plague doctor syringe, Rudolph's injuries recovered quickly, but his face turned even more ugly. This was really bad news. When Rudolph stood up again, he only felt that his legs were weak. The serious injury he just suffered caused him to lose blood, shed a lot of cold sweat, and lost a lot of weight. Let's go find support. Facing Speaker Quint, who is completely crazy, there is nothing we can do. I hope we can make it in time. Rudolph raised his hand, and Vanya disappeared into Rudolph's left hand. Larry looked at Rudolph's right hand and consciously reached out to touch the palm of Rudolph's right hand. Larry's figure changed like a whirlpool, and he disappeared from Rudolph's hand and appeared in the star map in Rudolph's mind. Pisces hangs down a beam of starlight, and an oval light cocoon hangs below the beam, glowing with a hazy white light. Inside the light cocoon is the new Larry, Rudolph's second puppet, the Pisces puppet. Rudolph quickly rushed to the central area. He was going to see Claude. He wondered if Claude and Deputy Speaker Abel had any good ideas. If there is a problem, look for the thigh. Rudolph is a mature man and it is best not to venture into it alone. When he arrived at the central area, he saw people from the police station in full force. They were carrying guns and ammunition boxes, and they were all in a hurry. Rudolph found Claude at the door of the police station. Before Rudolph could speak first, Claude said, "Rudolph." Revno woke up from his slumber. He has completed his promotion to slumber, gathered some forces in the wilderness, and is avenging his family. Revno meant it. He invited several level 5 heretics, and the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army went outside the city to find the enemy's main force and fight them. Deputy Speaker Abel means that I will take the people from the police station to set up defenses outside the city. The aftermath of the level 5 Apostle battle is likely to spread to Fabro City. Now that you are here, you should follow me and go outside the city to guard against the forces in the wilderness. Revno is awake. I didn't expect Revno to wake up at this time. After a moment, Rudolph felt that Revno's end of sleep at this time might be the plan of those people. It's still the same style. Under the heavy pressure of the wilderness heretics, the parliament can't be blamed for any disasters that happen in Fabro City. Fabro City, a city close to the wilderness, is prone to disasters. Rudolph hurriedly said, "Sheriff, there is something wrong in the Dordo district. I saw the judgment office and the evil god priest there." He leaned close to Claude's ear and told Claude that the evil god was painfully watching the Dordo district. Claude was stunned. He looked in the direction of the Dordo district, feeling a little depressed. Finally, he made a decision. But, Revno's revenge is also a big deal. The police station can't sit idly by and watch the outer perimeter of Fabro City being destroyed. Let's do this, Rudolph. I'll send a police captain with patrolmen. There can't be too many people. This is the only support I can provide. In the distance, airships were taking off. Sharp military bugles sounded on the airships. That was the Constitutional Army gathering troops. The Blood Clan can fly, and they have a strong restraint on airships. If Revno can find a few other level 5 heretics, the Constitutional Army will be difficult to deal with. The Constitutional Army has already attacked. Claude was very anxious. The enemies were not only in the air, but also on the ground. The enemies on the ground needed to be dealt with by the police station. I'll have someone notify Vice Speaker Abel. Before that, Rudolph, you and Caden should watch the Dordo district first. Seeing Claude leave anxiously, Rudolph knew that Claude didn't have many ways to deal with the sacrifice. After Claude left, Sheriff Caden led more than 20 patrolmen and followed Rudolph to the Dordo district. The battle between the outskirts of Fabro City and the major forces in the wilderness was the focus. Caden was a little anxious. The director asked him to come to the Dordo district to investigate the evil god priests. He felt that there was no chance to make meritorious deeds, especially after seeing many people from the trial bureau. The people from the trial bureau set up checkpoints on the avenue, and there were witch hunters guarding the commanding heights such as the rooftops around. "I am Sheriff Caden of the police station. Please make way." Caden did not say his reason, but emphasized that the police station was handling the case and should not stop it. But what surprised Caden was that the people from the trial bureau had no intention of making way. A captain of the trial bureau said, "Sheriff Caden, please go outside the city as soon as possible and organize militia to resist the vampires and the wolf tide. Our trial bureau is responsible here, and there will be absolutely no problem." A dozen witch hunters gathered from a distance. They were determined and Caden's people could not get through at all. Rudolph, who was watching these secretly from a distance, felt a strong sense of powerlessness in his heart. He looked at the direction of the Dordo district in despair. Is there no way to avoid this disaster? Must we follow Quint's arrangement and turn everyone here into blood servant miners? What crime did the people here commit? Why didn't anyone tell them to stay away from cities like Fabro, which are close to the wilderness? After negotiating for a long time, Caden had to turn back and retreat to find Rudolph, who was following in secret. Caden knew that Sheriff Rudolph was the confidant of Director Claude and performed many very secret tasks for the director. After seeing that there was no one around, Caden said, "Sheriff Rudolph, there are too many witch hunters, and I can't go deeper into the Dordo district. More importantly, I have no reason." The trial office said that they are also performing official duties. Yes, maybe many witch hunters in the trial office thought they were performing the task of protecting the Dordo district, and many witch hunters were kept in the dark. "Captain Caden, please continue to find ways to monitor the Dordo district and collect evidence of various actions of the tribunal." "Okay." Caden turned around and took the police officers to find a solution, but he didn't look good about it. So many people from the tribunal are much more professional than the police in terms of confidentiality and elimination of traces. Rudolph stood on the roof of a house, looking at the Dordo district, which was still peaceful, and his heart became more and more irritated. In the distance outside the suburbs, the Constitutional Army had already tentatively fought with the people in the wilderness. As long as the battle entered a white-hot stage, these people in the Dordo district would quickly take action and start sacrificing the evil god. Those with good qualifications became priests, and those with poor qualifications used the blood of broken limbs to make blood servants. This night, the Dordo district will also be submerged in darkness. Rudolph knew everything, but it was useless, he could do nothing. If there were only evil gods, Rudolph would try to destroy the sacrificial ceremony, but they also had the tribunal, which made Rudolph tie his hands and feet. He couldn't kill all the witch hunters who blocked his way. Rudolph turned around and stopped looking at the Dordo district, which was destined to become hell. He glanced in the direction of the Alchemy Council. The source of all this chaos came from the person with the highest position in the council. Larry appeared beside Rudolph. Rudolph held the purple scorpion mask that he hadn't used for a long time in his hand, and waited patiently for Larry to finish divination. "Mist divination can help us find a chance to break through. Larry is now a level 3 word spirit. Word spirits are very rare apostles, and the number is about the same as that of wizards. Level 3 word spirits, divination ability can already greatly affect the direction of many things. Mist divination can point out a general direction in the chaos to break through the current predicament. Rudolph wants to do something big, but this thing is very difficult. Only mist divination can give him confidence and convince him to keep going." The pantry. The pantry of the city council hall. After getting the answer, Rudolph put on the mask, Larry disappeared in Rudolph's palm, and Rudolph disappeared from the roof. This is destined to be a sleepless night. In the Dordo district, many people are busy, and sacrifices are brought to the wall one by one, ready to start the ceremony. In the suburbs, Revno has gathered several level 5 heretics to retaliate against the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army. The main force of the trial bureau is in the Dordo district. The Parliament building complex in the central area has become the most vacant place tonight. The initial infiltration was very smooth. Soon, Rudolph appeared in the pantry on the first floor of the council hall. Following Larry's prompts, Rudolph chose the second kettle. This is an insulated kettle with very thick walls. After opening the lid and throwing something in, Rudolph disappeared in the pantry again. The power of the word spirit is so wonderful. Rudolph came and went without meeting anyone. It was a coincidence. Not long after, a waitress entered the pantry, and it was her turn to be on duty in the second half of the night. The waitress didn't know why, but the bigwigs in the parliament had to deal with things in the parliament all night tonight. Even the speaker didn't leave, and the deputy speaker went to the battlefield outside the city in person. Her duty was to prepare coffee and strong tea for the bigwigs at night. From a row of 4 or 5 kettles, the waitress randomly picked one, the second one from the left, and took the kettle to the hot water outlet to get water. After getting the hot water, she walked deep into the council hall with the kettle. Along the way, the witch hunters checked her kettle. The waitress knew that they were checking whether the hot water was poisonous. Those bigwigs were really careful. Boiled water had the function of disinfection. How could it be poisonous? The waitress just thought they were making a fuss. Sure enough, the witch hunters found nothing and let her go. Another waitress had already ground coffee beans in the second-floor preparation room. After making coffee and tea, another witch hunter came to check whether the final drink was poisonous. The result was still normal, nothing. Two waitresses entered the speaker's office with coffee and strong tea, and the kettle was left where it was. At this time, there were two more members in the speaker's office. They stopped talking tacitly after the waitress entered. After the waitresses placed the drinks according to the tastes of these people, they withdrew and took a nap on the chairs in the pantry. The battle in the suburbs emitted a brilliant light, and explosions and heretical magic kept illuminating the glass, but these could not affect the two waitresses. The Parliament is the safest place in Fabreau City, and no one dares to mess around here. Everything is so normal. Until someone asked the waitress to go in and add hot water to the tea, the waitress stood up with the kettle. I don't know why these bigwigs are so energetic. It's 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, and they don't rest. The waitress entered the speaker's office with a kettle and walked forward with her head down. At this time, several bigwigs tacitly kept silent again, not wanting the waitress to hear anything. The waitress stood beside the speaker and added water to the speaker's strong tea. At this moment, something strange happened. The aluminum kettle suddenly exploded and swelled into a ball. The next moment, like a burst fire hose, a raging stream of water gushed out from the exploded kettle. Speaker Quint was about to stab the waitress in front of him with a fountain pen, but a huge stream of water appeared between them and instantly separated the two of them. From the ceiling to the floor, the violent water flow instantly turned the speaker's office into a fish tank. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 267. When seeing this huge flood attack, the first thing that Speaker Quint thought of was Fenton, the wizard of the Ravno family. Only Cancer Fenton had this attack ability. Being submerged in water at this time, Speaker Quint's first thought was that Ravno wanted to make a real play. On the surface, Ravno followed Quint's request and retaliated against the Alchemy Council's attack on his family tonight. In fact, he might really want to take the opportunity to do something. In a flash, Quint remembered another piece of information. The Trial Bureau investigated one thing. The cancer wizard Fenton of the Ravno family may have died. In order to prevent others from knowing that their strength was greatly damaged, the Ravno family deliberately concealed this news. Tables, chairs, paper, and pens were all suspended in the water at this time. Quint didn't even dare to open his eyes in the water. He had already felt the strong toxin, which was the toxin of the Scorpio wizard. Did Ravno and Abel cooperate? Other people in the office had already been poisoned by the toxin. The waitress and two counselors were all rushed to the periphery. Only Quint was in the center of the office. No matter what conspiracy there is, Quint wants to get out of trouble as soon as possible. Wrapped in poisonous water and suddenly attacked by cancer witchcraft, many of Quint's methods cannot be used. He is waiting for the water to break through the window. As long as the poisonous water breaks through the window, the water pressure inside will drop rapidly. However, the water in the room began to rotate immediately after it was filled, and a water spout appeared in the room. The pressure of the spiral poisonous water on the walls and windows suddenly decreased. The spiral water also pressed Quint in the center, waiting for Quint to die of suffocation. The strength of alchemists is mostly reflected in their weapons, and their own strength is not strong. Quint was rolled in the center of the water spout and kept spinning. At this time, not far outside the speaker's office building, Rudolph was trying his best to control the dark river ring and manipulate the water flow to control Quint. Larry beside him shed tears of blood from the corners of his eyes. Larry forced himself to do the second fog divination tonight, which made him, who had just recovered from a serious injury, almost exhausted, with a listless look and sunken cheeks. Soon, soon. Larry stared at the night sky, watching Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and other planets constantly moving. The positions of these planets will affect Quint's fate. In Larry's mind, Quint's birth chart emerged. In divination, Saturn represents disaster and bad luck. When Saturn moves to a certain position tonight, it will conflict with Quint's birth chart, indicating that Quint will encounter a disaster that he cannot avoid in time, and at that moment, it may kill Quint. High in the night sky, thousands of meters high, Vanya is always ready. Larry's hand holding the crystal ball, his knuckles turned white because of excessive force. Forcefully introduce the planetary power into the crystal ball and do the last divination tonight. Now. Let Vanya act. Missed divination, in the foggy difficulties, find the only direction to get light. Vanya in the sky folded his bat wings and accelerated to dive down. Even if nothing happened in the Parliament building complex now, Vanya still obeyed the order and tried his best to dive. His bat wings were almost attached to his body, and the bat wings wrapped himself into a streamlined cocoon, which made him fall very quickly. At this time, in the speaker's office, Quint finally caught something. The carpet in the room was also rolled up by the waterspout, and Quint grabbed the carpet in the chaos. Holding the carpet in his hand, Quint activated his level 4 alchemist ability and made level 4 gunpowder. Anything he touched could be made into an explosive. The carpet had been rolled into a stick in the water. The outer carpet was soaked in water and could not be turned into explosives, but the core in the center could still be used. The alchemical power was poured into the stick-shaped carpet, and soon a simple detonator was made. Quint tried his best to control his balance in the waterspout, put this simple detonator under his feet, and let it explode under his feet. The explosion made a dull sound, and a force appeared under Quint's feet, pushing him to the ceiling. Under the combined effect of the buoyancy of the water and the explosion, Quint was finally able to touch the ceiling. This office building is a 2-story office building with a single building. As long as the roof is blown off, he can escape. His hand touched the ceiling. Because of the existence of the waterspout, his hand was against the ceiling, and it was still spinning. Resisting the dizziness, Quint began to perform the gunpowder practice again. A little red light suddenly appeared on the roof of the speaker's office building, and the bricks and stones on the roof glowed red, like gunpowder that had just been ignited. The floor slabs, which were more than 10 centimeters thick, were penetrated by Quint's alchemical power. The floor slabs assimilated by the alchemical power glowed with a deadly red light and turned into explosives. There was a roar, but this time the roar was not in the water, so it could be heard by people outside. The roof of the office building exploded, and thick smoke rushed into the air. Rudolph was trying his best to control the water flow witchcraft. He didn't expect that Quint, who was attacked by surprise, still had the ability to break the situation. He could actually turn what he touched into explosives. At this time, more than a dozen witch hunters from other places were rushing here, and the situation was becoming increasingly unfavorable for Rudolph. Rudolph looked up at the sky, at the black ellipsoid that was about to fall to the ground. Is this the opportunity Larry mentioned? Can't slow down. Can't slow down at all. Let Vanya rush down. This is the only chance to kill Quint. If he doesn't slow down now, if he continues to speed up now, then Vanya will definitely not have a chance to increase his altitude, and he will definitely fall to death. But seeing the determination in Larry's eyes, Rudolph gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and suddenly drove the water flow, letting the water flow like a fountain from the gap created by Quint. The witch hunters saw a water column suddenly appear above the speaker's office building, a water column that rushed straight into the night sky and was tens of meters high. As Quint rushed out with the water column, he finally breathed in the air. But after he opened his eyes, he saw that his position was getting higher and higher, and his body was uncontrollably rushed to a height of tens of meters. Here he could see the entire Parliament building complex, and his first reaction was to look at the office building where Abel's office was located. Abel did not have a standalone office building, and the windows there were dark at this time. Abel went to the suburbs to deal with Revno's revenge and was not in the Parliament. In the air, Quint reached into his arms and wanted to take out his magic weapon. As the speaker, he had many magic weapons that could increase his combat effectiveness at critical moments. However, he heard a strange sound. This sound was somewhat familiar to him, so it seemed strange. This sound would only be heard when a bomb dropped from a high altitude rubbed against the air violently. Quint turned up in the air, trying to see what was thrown down. But he was hit hard by a figure only halfway to the side. How could it be such a coincidence? Who arranged such a meticulous plan to murder him? Vanya opened the iron batwing at the last moment, and the silver edge of the iron batwing cut directly on Quint's waist. For a moment, the entire Parliament building complex fell into silence. There were not many witch hunters in the Parliament building complex tonight. At this time, they all stood on the ground and on the roof in panic, watching the speaker being cut in half. The Blood Clan fell from the sky, the speed was so fast, and the force was so great. After the speaker Quint was cut in half, his internal organs were carried by the huge force and bloomed downwards like water grass. Dead, Quint, the speaker of the Alchemy Council of Fabreau City, died in the hands of a Blood Clan. The update of 10,000 words has ended. I hope book friends will subscribe and support. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 268. In the gushing water column, many things were washed out with the water flow. Pens, ink bottles, books, badges, etc. Among these sundries, there was also an inconspicuous ring, which was also washed high into the sky. A stream of water pushed the ring in a certain direction. The inconspicuous ring fell to the sunken gutter where the two sloping roofs were connected, and Rudolph reached out to catch the ring. "Let's go, Larry." Rudolph stretched out his hand and pressed Larry's shoulder, making Larry disappear in Rudolph's palm. Before leaving, Rudolph glanced at Vanya, who was stared at by dozens of witch hunters. Vanya had no chance to recover for the time being. He chose to escape secretly to avoid being surrounded. At a speed of more than 200 kilometers per hour, in pursuit of the ultimate surprise attack, Vanya cut Quint in half, and had little chance to slow down, and fell heavily to the ground. Vanya's bones were not intact, and a large pool of blood fell out, but he still insisted on using the power of the Blood Clan, allowing the blood to automatically deform around him, leaving a line of words on the ground. "Ravener will take revenge." When dozens of witch hunters arrived nearby, they only saw two corpses and this line of blood. What no one knew was that Vanya's blood cut a finger from Quint's body. Quint left several relics after his death, and there was only one level 4 relic, which was this alchemical finger. The level 4 alchemical finger disappeared in Vanya's palm, but entered Rudolph's star map. This was the first level 4 relic Rudolph obtained. He didn't expect that his level 4 relic came from Quint, the speaker of the Fabreau City Council. Listening to the increasingly boiling voices in the parliamentary building complex behind him, Rudolph felt that he seemed to be playing a little too big. "Go find Councillor Jem. Find the director of the trial office. Go and notify Vice Speaker Abel." The Parliament's spare airships took off quickly, one flying to the Dordo district, and the other flying to the battlefield in the suburbs. At this time, Jem was still dealing with the sacrifice in the Dordo district, and the Thor Trading Company was still waiting to receive new blood servants. The painful priest was annoying at this point. Sacrificing a person was so time-consuming, and he had to let the sacrifice fully release the pain. In the words of the painful priest, death after a short period of pain is a kind of relief, a kind of gift, not pain. In front of Jem, a sacrifice was nailed to the wall. This sacrifice was not a heretic, but just an ordinary person. This person was in his 50s and found that the children he had invested countless emotions in and raised for decades were not his own. He was driven out of the house by his wife, children, and adulterer and became a homeless man. I have to say, it sounds miserable. The sacrifice folded his hands, and a long iron nail pierced through his two palms, nailing him to the wall. There are long iron nails on his shoulders, abdomen, and knee joints, making his whole body glow with bright red blood. The sacrifice of the 14 sacrifices on the periphery is coming to an end. Panur at the central main altar must have successfully communicated with the evil god. Once the sacrifice on the central altar is completed, the evil god can look at this place painfully. At that time, let the people in the Dordo district walk out of their homes and cut off their fingers under the painful gaze of the evil god for the evil god to choose a servant. And those who are not painfully selected by the evil god can become blood servants to help Thor Trading Company get out of trouble. All this was originally so smooth, with only some small accidents, such as people coming to the police station, but the people in the police station were driven back by the witch hunters. Claude, the fool who thought he was righteous, had long been designed by Speaker Quint to be transferred to the suburbs. The director of the Judgment Bureau, Arden, suddenly reminded Jem, "Senator Jem, why did the Parliament's airship take off?" Jem turned his head and saw that all the remaining airships of the Parliament took off. Did the plan change? What new arrangements did Speaker Quint have? He had a bad feeling in his heart. An airship was heading straight for the Dordo district, and a witch hunter waved the warning light in his hand to guide the airship. A rope dropped from the airship, and a witch hunter slid down the rope from the airship at a high speed, stumbling and running towards Senator Jem, and said something in his ear. Jem was stunned for a moment, his eyes were dull, and he couldn't believe it. What happened? Yadin couldn't help asking. Jem murmured in disbelief, "Speaker Quint is dead? Killed by Ravno's people." Yadin panicked for a moment. He never thought that someone would take advantage of the opportunity and kill the speaker at this time. Without the speaker, what else can they do in Fabro City? Self-protection. Self-protection. Jem reacted from the shock and immediately made a judgment. At this time, he must protect himself first. How to protect ourselves? Abel will definitely become the new speaker, we have to please him. Follow his ideas. Jem suddenly looked at the sacrificial ceremony in front of him with a fierce look on his face. We can't let the sacrifice complete. Otherwise Abel will not let us go. No one will help us anymore. The next moment, Jem and Yadin personally attacked the priests around them and killed all the priests here. One order after another was quickly passed out, and the Judgment Office showed its prowess tonight, attacking the evil priests of the Dordo district. Let the airship of the Judgment Office come over and hunt down the chief priest Panur. Sheriff Caden on the periphery was worrying about how to break through the blockade of the Judgment Office. He saw a battle not far away, and the Judgment Office seemed to be fighting with someone. Not long after, he actually saw Senator Jem come out in person. "Chief Caden, we have completed the siege of the evil priests tonight, and we invite you to join us to completely eliminate the evil priests in Fabro City." Chief Caden knew that Representative Jem used to be the director of the judiciary and was now also a very important member of the parliament. However, Representative Jem suddenly became so enthusiastic, which still surprised Caden. "That's it, it's really time to eliminate the evil priests." Caden was going to follow Congressman Jem's lead to see what they wanted to do. So, Caden took the police officers and walked forward with doubts. The further they walked, the more confused Caden became. It seems like the people from the tribunal are serious. There were exploding alchemy grenades everywhere, and the airships in the sky were attacking the evil god priest without any reservation, not even caring about possible accidental injuries, and just wanted to launch the most artillery shells and rockets in the shortest time. At the same time, an airship also flew out of the city. Claude was still organizing defenses on the ground, and Vice Speaker Abel was on the Silver Flame, watching Colonel Guyton command the Constitutional Army to fight against a large number of vampires. Rievno didn't know which high-level vampire he was looking for, but there were actually 3 level 5 vampires, a dozen level 4 vampires, and an overwhelming number of level 3 and 2 vampires. The airship of the Parliament behind them ignored the gunfire and forcibly boarded the Silver Flame. A member of Parliament came over from the parliamentary airship, walked up to Deputy Speaker Abel, and whispered a few words. Abel was shocked and couldn't even control his expression. "What's going on?" Colonel Guyton asked from the side. Abel motioned to his assistant to get the speaker. While adjusting the speaker, he explained to Guyton, "Quint is dead. He was killed by a vampire." Colonel Guyton also looked at the members of Parliament in disbelief. The congressman bent over and said sadly, "It's absolutely true, Colonel Guyton. Someone took advantage of the lax defense of the Parliament and attacked the speaker. The speaker's office was filled with poisonous water that suddenly appeared. The speaker managed to escape, and a vampire fell from the sky. Cut the speaker in half with the iron bat wings. The vampire also fell to death, and the vampire also wrote in blood on the ground, 'Revno will take revenge.'" Abel's voice was amplified through the loudspeaker and rang in the night sky. "Riefner, you actually sent someone to sneak attack from behind and kill Chancellor Quint. The dignity of the Alchemy Council cannot be violated. Riefner, and everyone supporting Riefner tonight. All families. Wait for parliamentary sanctions." Rievno dodged a rocket and looked ahead in disbelief. "Quint is dead? Or did I kill him? Weird Star Witch." Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 269. Riefner has no intention of fighting anymore, and without Quint, all their plans are like a joke. The original purpose of tonight was to use the evil god's painful gaze to replenish the blood servants. I didn't know if Quint's death was true, but Rievno couldn't feel that the evil god's gaze was true for a long time. There was a lot of movement under the evil god's gaze, but now the Dordo district seemed to be in a battle, with airships attacking people on the ground. I don't know what happened in Dordo district, but the evil god's painful eyes did not fall there in the end. Those vampire families who support Rievno certainly know the importance of Speaker Quint, and they also want to get a piece of the pie in the Ruhr mine. Now that Speaker Quint is dead, they only think that Rievno has deceived them. For a time, the momentum of the people on Rievno's side was greatly reduced, and the Constitutional Army took advantage of the situation to launch a general attack. After the forces in the wilderness retreated, Colonel Guyton and Deputy Speaker Abel had no intention of pursuing them, and turned around and headed for the parliamentary complex. The people at the police station below were also aware of the anomaly. After the forces in the wilderness withdrew, they also returned to the city. Cold sweat broke out on Claude's head. He had a feeling that this could not have been done by the impulsive Rudolph, right? Soon, dozens of airships gathered in the Parliament, from the Constitutional Army, the Parliament, the Vicomte de Savant, the Tribunal, the Police Department, and the 2 trading companies. The airship was suspended in the air, and a figure fell from the airship. These figures gathered outside the office building of the Speaker of Parliament and looked at the tragic scene. Speaker Quint has been broken into 2 parts, and the 2 parts of the body are dozens of meters apart. Chancellor Quint experienced a heavy blow before his death, so that his chest and abdominal cavity were empty, and the internal organs inside were thrown very far away. As for the murderer, he looked even worse. It fell directly to the ground at a speed of more than 200 kilometers per hour. It was a bloody mess, like a puddle of flesh and blood, and its internal organs were thrown out, making the color colorful. I don't know how the murderer did it. His skull was smashed into a shriveled cloth bag, and he left a message before his death: Rievno must avenge himself. Because the skull was so shattered and his facial features were spread out on the ground, it was impossible to even identify the appearance of the murderer. There were many people standing in front of the Speaker's office building. Councillor Jem and the director of the Judicial Department stood at the end and did not dare to step forward because the people in the front were all the Deputy Speaker's people. In other words, now that the Speaker has died, all the members are the Deputy Speaker. Just when the two of them didn't know how to deal with themselves, they suddenly heard someone calling them from the front. The two looked at each other and stepped forward. Next to the Speaker's body were Colonel Guyton, Deputy Speaker Abel, Viscount Xuanhuan, Police Commissioner Claude and several other senior members. Deputy Speaker Abel stared at the director of the tribunal, Arden, and asked, "Director Arden, why are there only a dozen witch hunters around the parliament tonight? What are you doing? Why do you ignore the Speaker's safety so much?" Cold sweat instantly broke down on Arden's face. With this sentence, most of the responsibility was firmly placed on him. Ignore the safety of the Speaker, who dares to ignore the safety of the Speaker? There are actions everywhere tonight, everything arranged by the Speaker. If you want to solve the shortage of blood servants in one night, who would have thought that someone would dare to directly attack Speaker Quint tonight? Arden swallowed hard and had to continue explaining. "Mr. Deputy Speaker, tonight our Judicial Bureau detected that there may be a terrifying evil god descending sacrificial ceremony in Dordo district. The priests of pain have devised a rigorous plan to make the evil god gaze upon the Dordo district in agony. They will select his divine servants through a horrific act of collective self-mutilation. Speaker Quint arranged for us to destroy this evil god's sacrificial ceremony to save the people in Dordo district." Arden did not dare to say more. After briefly explaining the reasons, he stopped talking. The evil god sacrifice ceremony was indeed sabotaged by the Judgment Bureau. As soon as it learned that the Speaker was dead, the Judgment Bureau turned its guns and killed all the evil god priests it could see. They knew that if the evil god's ritual was completed, the powerful Deputy Speaker Abel would push them out as scapegoats and send them to see Speaker Quint. Jem and Arden turned quickly enough, and Abel couldn't find any excuse at this time. The tribunal is solely responsible for investigating the cause of Speaker Quint's death. You are limited to 1 week to give the Parliament a satisfactory result. After finishing speaking, Deputy Speaker Abel looked at Claude again. The police station is going to investigate immediately. Find out how many people in the Central District have illegal contact with the heretics. The heretics made sacrifices in the Dordo district, and the heretics even broke into the Parliament. I don't believe they can do this without the cooperation of anyone. Check. Those who engage in heresy must be investigated and punished. After that, the furious Deputy Speaker and Colonel Guyton left here. Jem and Arden only felt extremely headaches. Now that the Speaker was dead, the mess of the aftermath still fell on them. Does the cause of the Speaker's death still need to be investigated? He was killed in Parliament, and how many people saw the result? At the same time, Claude walked towards the dozen witch hunters who remained in the Parliament. "A dozen of you. Come with me. You'd better prove your innocence and explain why heretics can enter the Parliament so easily." People from the police station stepped forward, took away the weapons of more than a dozen witch hunters, and cuffed them away with alchemy handcuffs. Jem and Arden kept their eyes downcast throughout the whole process, without looking much or making any comments. The tribunal did not investigate this matter. They had been dealing with the Rievno family and the evil god, so it was easy to find a breakthrough. At that time, the charge of colluding with heretics will easily fall on them, and Vice Speaker Abel will have plenty of ways to deal with them. This night is so hard to bear. Jem's eyes flickered, and he was not ready to sit and wait for death. He pulled Yatin and walked towards the group of vice speakers who had just left. Yatin followed Jem and couldn't help but whispered, "Don't you want to negotiate with Claude? Claude is not the key to the problem, but Vice Speaker Abel is." The two found Avery at the door of the Vice Speaker's office. At this time, Avery, like many people, was anxiously waiting at the door of the Vice Speaker's office, looking forward to the Vice Speaker's reception. In the future, Abel will have the final say in Fabreau City. Jem stood beside Avery and whispered to him. Avery, it's useless to worry here. The most important thing now is how to make Vice Speaker Abel our man. In Thor Trading Company, Speaker Quint's share must be changed as soon as possible. I know you want to do this, but you can't easily give Speaker Quint's shares to Vice Speaker Abel. Avery was very annoyed. His intention was seen through by Jem. He was indeed very anxious. Speaker Quint had always been his backer and had been handling the complex relationships of the county council for the trading company. Now that Speaker Quint was gone, the future of the trading company suddenly became dark. Avery, don't wait here. Go and ask your father, Mr. Thor, to come out, Jem said. Mr. Thor is also a level 4 alchemist. He is qualified to run for deputy speaker or even speaker. I will contact other members. You go home to find your father. We will meet here at dawn. We must prepare for both hands and pull Deputy Speaker Abel on our chariot. And Speaker Quint's son, the director of the County Council Trial Department, Quinn, we must also notify him overnight and ask him to come to Fabreau City. Avery's eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, his father is also a level 4 alchemist and can also become a pillar in this chaotic situation. It's a pity that his father is too old. He is over 80 years old. But as long as his father becomes deputy speaker, everything will be different. The Parliament building complex is turbulent, and many people are destined to have difficulty sleeping. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 270. Chapter 270 Level 4 Magical Weapon, Finger of Practice. When the Alchemy Council was in chaos, Rudolph had already quietly left. The Judgment Office only had level 2 word spirits, and Larry was a level 3 word spirit. Larry could easily help Rudolph erase all traces and escape from the scene. Once out of the central area, Fabreau City became extremely quiet. Whether it was the death of a speaker or the unfinished painful sacrifice, it was a distant thing for ordinary people. In fact, as long as no one disturbed them and no one exploited them, these ordinary people could live well on their own. Rudolph liked this peaceful appearance. Everything was exactly the same as yesterday. He quickly passed through the Dordo district and came to the cemetery. At this time, Cooper also woke up. He looked at the dozens of airships above the central area and asked, Rudolph, what happened to the central area? Nothing, someone just killed Speaker Quint. Cooper was stunned and took a half step back. His serious expression seemed to make him feel safer if he was away from Rudolph. Rudolph, are you playing so big now? Why did you kill the speaker? I didn't say I killed him. Then is the man you are talking about crazy? Why did he kill the speaker? Speaker Quint deserves to die. I'm fed up with him. No, I mean the murderer is fed up with him. If he doesn't die, the Dordo district will be sacrificed tonight, either to the evil god or to Quint's miners. If Quint doesn't die, the disaster in Fabreau City will not stop. Zombies don't sweat, but Cooper still pulled his collar and felt a little hot. Rudolph didn't say much and walked straight to the woods behind the cemetery. This forest is always cold and windy, and the whistling of the cold wind is like the low hum of wronged souls. Even in May, it makes people's hair stand on end. No one will enter here. It is an excellent place to make witchcraft. Rudolph quickly got into the woods and prepared for his promotion. In May, the Taurus month, Rudolph will learn the first earth sign witch language here. When Vanya obtained Quint's finger had turned into a meteor and hit the Cancer Beta star on the star map, and the progress of Cancer reached 1/6. Cancer has only 6 bright stars, which is a constellation with fewer bright stars. From the Cancer Beta star, 3 suspended stars fell. Level 4 gunpowder refining finger, Level 4 Alchemical Steel Making Method, Level 4 Separation Technique. Alchemical steel and separation technique are both exclusive abilities of alchemists, and Rudolf has no use for them, but gunpowder refining finger attracted Rudolf's attention. Quint's level 4 gunpowder refining technique impressed Rudolf. Even if it was touching the floor, it could quickly turn the floor into an explosive in a short time. Without hesitation, Rudolf chose the level 4 refining finger. After drawing the astrological triangle on the ground, Rudolf took out the newly acquired relic, a finger of Quint. No wonder the alchemist wanted to kill all wizards. How could he feel good when he thought about his fingers being taken away and made into magic tools after his death? Quint's fingers were very old and had age spots on them, but it did not affect the fact that it was a level 4 relic. Rudolf placed Quint's fingers on the left circle of the great triangle of the astrology, and removed the tip of his cane and placed it in the right circle. Rudolf looked up in the direction of Taurus, which is the first earth sign of the year. Taurus, taciturn, silently works on the land, and is a creature with a gentle personality and stable temperament. Taurus originally represents stability and silence, but once Taurus is angered, it often reacts more violently, just like an honest person who is angered. The more honest he is at ordinary times, the more desperate he is when he goes crazy. The witch language used for the level 4 practice finger is the Taurus witch language, violent. Rudolf looked directly at Taurus and began to draw in the star power. The star power descending from Taurus knocked Rudolf's head open like a wild bull. Rudolf felt that his head had just been smashed. The star power of Taurus was running wild in Rudolf's body. Rudolf was like a manic bull wrapped in flesh and blood. Its hard horns were pushing Rudolf's body, and its strong muscles bumped Rudolf's chest and abdomen into lumps. This feeling was too bad. Rudolf just wanted to get rid of the Taurus star power as soon as possible. However, Rudolf still needed to receive the second star power, the Leo star power. Since it was a magic weapon about gunpowder, the magic language related to Leo flame was also needed. The second magic language was the Leo magic language explosion, which could enhance the power of explosives. The magic weapon made was even stronger than the gunpowder of the 4th level alchemist. Most of the magic weapons were stronger than the original relics, which was the unreasonable part of the wizard. Soon, the 2 star powers were poured into the astrological triangle. Star power quickly moved under the star stone powder, and the powder was arched high. Taurus star power and Leo star power rolled up the 2 items, and Quint's fingers and the tip of the cane gathered towards the top ring of the astrological triangle. The star stone powder began to burn like gunpowder, eager to complete the magic weapon. In the top ring of the astrological triangle, the star stone powder burned violently, gradually fusing the 2 items into one. The flame went out, and only one item remained in the top ring, Rudolf's level 4 magic weapon, the gunpowder practiced finger. On the chrome-plated metal cane tip, several dark golden flame patterns appeared, which was Rudolf's level 4 magic weapon. The original level 3 werewolf claw blade can also be used, and the dark golden flame patterns on the cane tip are the main function of the level 4 practiced finger. After putting the magic weapon back into the cane, Rudolf couldn't wait to test the power of the magic weapon. The tip of the cane was gently inserted into the ground, and Rudolf poured star power into the tip of the cane. Under the effects of Taurus witch language violence and Leo witch language explosion, as well as the level 4 relic gunpowder practice finger, the soil in front of Rudolf became extremely agitated. The alchemist's practice finger took effect, and the soil in front of the cane tip instantly turned into gunpowder, and the gunpowder was on the verge of exploding at any time. The fan-shaped ground was glowing with dangerous red light, which was like rolling magma, exuding a dangerous breath. By manipulating the direction of star power, the burning direction of gunpowder can be manipulated. Like a directional thunder, an explosion suddenly occurred in front of Rudolf. A large amount of gunpowder exploded forward, turning a large area in front of Rudolf into a sea of gunpowder. A fan-shaped area in front of Rudolph was covered by a violent explosion. Even if there were knights in it, they would be instantly blown to ashes. The level 4 practice finger can not only create a fan-shaped explosion area like a directional mine, but also arrange the gunpowder into a ring, surrounding Rudolph in the center, making the area around Rudolph as if it were full of mines, turning it into a manic restricted area. The combat power of this level 4 magic weapon is so satisfying. Speaker Quint finally did a good thing after his death. Who would have thought that Rudolph's level 4 relic would fall on him? After Quint's death, Rudolph will inevitably usher in a huge flood. Thinking about it is a bit of a headache. I don't know if Ravno alone is enough to vent the anger of those alchemists. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 271. The power of the 4th level magic weapon is very strong. Looking at the big pits blown out around him, Rudolph felt that he could kill Quint, which was definitely the credit of the 3rd level word spirit Larry. Larry's divination selected 2 perfect opportunities for Rudolph to make a move, making every action of Rudolph very reasonable. With the help of the word spirit, Rudolph will rarely make mistakes in the future. All kinds of apostles follow a rule: the number and quality of apostles are inversely proportional. The more apostles there are, the lower the individual ability is, and the more they rely on organization. Using a huge organization to oppress other apostles is the secret of their survival. Rudolph is not afraid of any alchemist, but he is afraid of the Alchemy Council. The Alchemy Council of Fabreau City is only the lowest level organization of the council, which is enough to put a lot of pressure on Rudolph. The fewer the number of apostles, the stronger the individual ability is. Unlike those apostles with huge power, the number of word spirits is very small and very precious. The improvement brought by a high-level word spirit is far greater than that of a dozen or even dozens of thugs. Apostles with powerful abilities are also used to walking alone. Rudolph never wanted to have a wizard friend, because that would reduce the number of relics he would obtain. Rudolph exhaled happily. In any case, he finally became a level 4 wizard. If there were no constitutional army, Rudolph could walk sideways in Fabreau City. Rudolph has learned 10 of the 12 zodiac signs' witch language, leaving only the witch language of Virgo and Capricorn. As for the level 5 wizard, that is a hurdle for all wizards. Apostles of level 5 and above are all high-level apostles, and their abilities will undergo a qualitative change. As the wizard's level increases, the witch language is also upgraded from level 3 to level 4, and the power of the witch language has been improved, and his witchcraft has been upgraded to level 4 witchcraft. For example, the purple fireball technique, the level 3 purple fireball technique, split purple fire, can emit 8 fireballs with a diameter of about 1 meter. The purple fireball technique uses Gemini witchcraft, fission. Level 3 witchcraft, fission can split 3 times, while level 4 witchcraft, fission can split 4 times. Therefore, the level 4 purple fireball technique can launch 16 purple fireballs. The diameter of each purple fireball has also increased from 1 meter to about 1.5 meters. This is because the effect of Leo witchcraft, expansion, is getting stronger, which greatly improves the effect of this technique. 16 purple poisonous fireballs as high as a person's shoulder can almost fill the enemy's entire field of vision, which is extremely oppressive. The remaining witchcraft, the toxicity of Scorpio toxins, the distance of bone-eroding poison, etc. have all been strengthened. Unfortunately, there are too few level 4 witchcraft tools, only one, which makes Rudolph feel insecure. Rudolph, a level 4 Scorpio wizard. Starfall Forbidden Technique. Scorpio Puppet, Vampire Vanya. Pisces Puppet, Word Spirit Larry. Mastering Witch Language. Scorpio Witch Language Water Phase Venom, Infection, Malice, Hatred, Detoxification. Pisces Witch Language Water Phase Entanglement, Alien. Cancer Witch Language Water Phase Containment, Swallowing. Leo, which language? Fire phase: flame, dazzling, expansion, magnification, explosion. Sagittarius, which language? Fire phase: laser, flying, stabbing, sharp. Aries, which language? Fire phase: rebirth, evolution. Gemini, which language? Wind phase: split, fission, relative. Libra, which language? Wind phase: equivalence. Aquarius, which language? Wind phase: burst. Taurus, which language? Earth phase: violent. After counting his own improvement, Rudolph let Larry appear again. The reason why puppet forbidden technique is forbidden is that it can create puppets of the same level as the main body. Now Larry has also become a level 4 word spirit. Level 4 word spirit, mastered a new divination technique, numerology divination. Larry was very surprised by his promotion and was trying out his new technique. Rudolph watched Larry study his new divination technique with great interest and didn't know how to start. 2 hours later, when the first ray of sunlight fell, Larry would say goodbye to this world forever. Rudolph looked at the forbidden light cocoon that originally belonged to Vanya in the star map. Vanya's soul was still in the light cocoon. As long as Rudolph didn't die, Vanya would not die. Even if Vanya was smashed into a puddle of mud, Rudolph had a way to restore Vanya, but he didn't know where Vanya was imprisoned now. The word imprison may not be very appropriate. Vanya who fell like that didn't need to be imprisoned. Maybe he was dissected. Just as Rudolph was thinking about how to find Vanya, there was a sound in the woods behind him, and someone came over. Cooper was frightened by the explosion here and walked out of the woods. He found the mess on the ground and couldn't understand it. "Rudolph, what are you doing?" "Nothing, I just felt itchy and tried a new magic weapon." Looking at the explosion residue on the ground, Cooper said puzzledly, "How does this look like an alchemist's method?" "You turned a certain alchemist into a magic weapon? Didn't you say not to provoke knights, alchemists and druids?" Soon, Cooper thought of a terrible possibility. Could it be? Rudolph just told him that the chairman of the Alchemy Council, the 4th level alchemist Quint, was dead. Could it be that Rudolph turned Quint into a magic weapon? Doesn't that mean that Rudolph has become a 4th level wizard now? Look at your little courage. Old Grey made the previous Viscount into a mummy. Do you think Old Grey has been afraid for so many years? Rudolph, you are inflated. The 4th level wizard made you inflated. Rudolph did not reply, but stuck his cane into the soil and began to experiment with earth magic. On the ground, the soil moved slowly. The earth sign brought some simple earth magic, such as the current magic, seismic magic, which is a simple magic that all earth wizards can learn. Advanced earth magic, like the one used by cancer wizard Fenton, can escape from the soil, which is a very practical magic. The pit slowly recovered and flattened in the movement of the soil. Except that there was no vegetation on them, there was no difference from before. Rudolph still had to continue making magic tools. He also obtained a level 3 white magic light bead and a level 2 insect nest. Cooper watched Rudolph making magic tools on the side. The level 3 white magic light bead was made into a chrome-plated spherical handle of a cane by Rudolph, and the level 2 insect nest was made into a wallet-like magic tool by Rudolph. I can see the handle of the staff clearly. It can attack the enemy with beams like the white demon priest. Cooper pointed at the wallet and asked, "What is the use of this wallet?" Rudolph said, "This wallet is a very practical space wizard. It can be used to store things." Cooper watched Rudolph stuff money, heartbeat earplugs, plague doctor syringes, plague doctor sprayers, scalpels and other things into the thin wallet, and felt it was amazing. Suddenly I envied the wizards. They had so many tricks. It's still a while before dawn. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Looking at Rudolph's back as he left, Cooper couldn't help scratching his head and felt his scalp numb. Level 4 wizard, I don't know if Colonel Gayton can sit still now. If he is a level 4 or 5 zombie, he must be unable to sit still now. At 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, Claude's office door was suddenly knocked. Claude was still digesting the chaotic news tonight, and didn't know who was looking for him at this time. "Come in." Claude was shocked to see that it was Rudolph who pushed the door open. He rubbed his dark circles, somewhat unbelievable. Afterwards, Claude stood up shakily, rushed to the door in a panic, and looked out to see if there was anyone in the hallway. "Rudolph! What are you doing? Are you playing King's Return with me?" Claude was very angry. "You should have found a hole to hide in at this time, and hide for 3 to 5 months without coming out, instead of hanging around in the police station."